to our meeting here for Mapleton Council on Tuesday, August the 10th, 2021. Welcome everyone who's here for the first time with Council, and welcome to the delegations as well. Mr. Clerk, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, we can, Your Worship. Councillor Dennis Craven.
Here.
Councillor Paul Douglas.
Here.
Councillor Michael Martin.
Here. Councillor
Marlene Ottens.
Here.
And Mayor Greg Davidson.
And present, sir, and thank you so much for the roll call. And just to remind everyone that is online that we are recording this meeting, and it will be going on YouTube later on. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we have the confirmation of minutes. Item number 4, that the minutes of the Township of Mapleton Council meeting held on July 13, 2021 be confirmed as circulated in the agenda package. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Douglas, second by Councillor Ottens. Thank you. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Councillor Craven, you're in the dark there. Do you have a light that you can put on?
Oh, I can see okay. I'm always in the dark, you know that.
All right, that's carried. Any matters arising from the minutes? The matters under the Planning Act, we have item number 6.1, Explore Net proposal to erect a 45-meter self-support telecommunications tower. And I believe we have a delegation here to talk about that, Mr. Clerk.
We do, Your Worship. We have Evan Turner and his co-worker Maria Wood.
Thank you. Go ahead with your delegation.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have a presentation. Would I be able to share my screen, or is it available?
You can share your screen, Mr. Clerk. Can you make that available for him? Thank you.
Okay. Can everybody see?
We can.
Okay. I'll just present in this format. Thank you for having me, Council. My name is Evan Turunen. I'm here with Kennel on behalf of ExploreNet Communications. We're proposing a telecommunications tower at 7009 County Road 12, and I have a quick overview presentation to go through. Pardon me. So in this presentation, I'll just go over ExploreNet's mission statement and services provided. I'll go over the tower design, the site location, some visual simulations, and the results of the consultation process. So this tower is part of ExploreNet's mission to make affordable, robust broadband available to every Canadian home and business. And this tower will expand ExploreNet's coverage to provide robust wireless broadband, high-speed home internet, and phone services in the Spruce Green area of Mapleton. Specifically, ExploreNet will offer up to speeds of up to 50 megabits per second down and up to 10 megabits per second upload with its proposed internet service. Here I have a diagram of the proposed tower, which will, as mentioned, be 45 meters in height and a self-support design as shown on the left. On the right, we have a sample tower compound, including a small equipment shelter at the base of the tower. The compound itself will be approximately 15 meters by 15 meters, and the equipment shelter will be 2.1 meters by 2.4, and it will hold the equipment to operate the tower. So here we can see the tower in context. It's located on a property near the intersection of 8 Line and County Road 12. As you can hopefully see in the picture, the tower is proposed near the existing building cluster and will use the existing access road in order to minimize any disruption to agricultural land. So as part of the process, we also looked at alternative sites for the tower, which ended up being rejected in favor of our proposed site. These locations did not meet ExploreNet's coverage requirements, and we wanted to ensure that the most amount of people will receive service from the tower. So here I have a visual simulation to give an idea of what the tower will look like when it's constructed. So this shows the tower from the intersection of County Road 12 and 8 Line looking south at the property. The image on the left shows the property, while the image on the right shows the property with the tower, if you can see here. And this is the visual simulation from a different angle. This is taken from south of the property down County Road 12, looking north towards the proposal. And as the previous slide, the image on the right has the tower simulated constructed. And so as part of the process, we did a public consultation, and here I have the summary of the consultation process for the proposal. For notification to residents, we published an ad in the local newspaper. In this case, it was the North Wellington Community News within the Wellington Advertiser. We sent notification mailouts to all landowners within 135 meters of the tower property, 135 meters being 3 times the tower height. And once begun, the tower consultation ran for 30 days. Although most tower proposals do receive some level of opposition, we are pleased to say we received no objections during this process. None were brought forward. And in conclusion, so our proposed tower will bring improved home internet and home phone services to the community as part of ExploreNet's mission to make affordable, robust, wireless broadband, high-speed internet services available to every Canadian home and business. The current proposals will have low visual and land use impacts within the community while providing a significant increase in home internet and home phone services. And as part of the application and proposal, ExploreNet is officially requesting that Council deliver a letter of concurrence for our ON 8070 Spruce Green Tower proposal. Thank you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Evan. If you can stop sharing now, that'd be great. And we have any questions from Council? Councillor Douglas.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I actually have 2 questions through you to Evan. At any point in the future, do you expect that this tower would be shared with other service providers, cell phones or TV or whatnot?
Pardon me. Through the chair, as part of industry, as regulated by Industry Canada, ExploreNet has to entertain any applications for other carriers to co-locate on the tower. So they can absolutely apply to ExploreNet and put their equipment on the lower parts of the tower.
Your follow-up, Mr. Douglas?
So I assume these lands are leased from the private owner. Just wondering how long the lease would be and what happens at the end of the lease to potentially the tower.
Through the chair, I'm not sure of the exact in years how long the lease is. Maybe my colleague Maria will be able to help. It's usually typically over 10 years, decades. But if the lease is not renewed, then the tower will be decommissioned.
Ms. Wood, do you have an answer?
Yes, through you, the chair, to Councillor Douglas. So at the end of the lease, and I am also not sure exactly how long the lease is. It's kind of dependent per landowner and per proposal. However, at the end of the lease, usually it's just extended for another certain amount of years, which is dependent on how long they think the tower would be operational.
Further questions from council members? Seeing that, I do have the recommendation here at item 6.1 that Township of Mapleton Council received the proposal package and presentation of Conacher Limited of Evan Turner and Maria Wood for information, and further that the clerk be authorized to sign the Conacher Limited submitted letter representing formal request for concurrence. Any further comments or questions from council? Need a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Martin, Councillor Douglas. Anybody opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Moving on to item number 6.2. This is a public meeting under the Planning Act to hear comments from the public and agencies and to give consideration to an application ZBA 2021-10 for a proposed zoning bylaw amendment. The subject lands are located at 7158 Wellington Road 17. The purpose in effect is to rezone the lands to allow the wholesale and distribution of trees. The owners intend to construct a 2,400 meters squared building to store trees grown on site, and some limited retail sales are also proposed. Mr. Clerk, your statutory requirements, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll start by saying the required notice and postings were completed on July 22nd. Comments from Fire Chief Rick Richardson and CBO Patty Wright were received and included in the agenda package. The planning report prepared by our own Linda Redmond is included in the agenda package. No concerns or objections were received from neighbors or ratepayers. And we did have one late submission from the county planners today, and I'll just briefly read that out. The county planners said the subject lands are designated as prime agriculture and core greenlands. The identified features include a GRCA regulated floodplain. The county official plan provides consideration for secondary uses and agricultural related uses. Agricultural related uses include farm-related commercial and industrial uses that are small scale and directly related to the farm operation and are required in close proximity to the farm operation. The agriculture first policy states that as a general rule, land use activities that support agriculture will be encouraged and land use activities that do not support agriculture will be discouraged. County planning staff have no concerns or comments on the application related to the county official plan.
Thank you, Clerk Wheeler. We will now hear from the planner, Linda Redmond. Welcome, Linda.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. As already indicated, the parcel of land is located in the prime agricultural area. It's designated prime ag and it's zoned agricultural. There's currently a farming operation on the property and a tree growing operation. So the applicants are looking to construct a facility to house the trees that are going to be distributed and sold. Part of this structure, they want to have a very small component of retail. And in terms of this type of use on a farm, this is absolutely what we permit, generally speaking. When we deal with farm operations, you can sell the product that you're making or growing or producing on your farm, from your farm. What the catch with this one is the distribution component, because the zoning bylaw in the definitions does not allow a commercial greenhouse on agricultural property, which is not what they're doing. It's the distribution component. And so the definition includes distribution or wholesale of these products as not permitted. So it's not a problem when it comes to the general prime agricultural policies that come down from the province or the county official plan. It's strictly an issue with the zoning bylaw and the definition of zoning under the zoning bylaw. So that's the need for the zone amendment. So we have no concerns with it whatsoever. It absolutely falls within the ag-related uses under the PPS.
Thank you, Linda. Does the applicant Lowell Martin have any comments that he'd like to make?
No, not that I really have. I'm here to answer any questions if somebody has any.
Thank you. Are there any comments from those attending through Zoom? Please indicate so and state your name and address for the record. We will first hear from those in support of the zoning amendment. Anybody wishing to speak in support of the zoning amendment? Anybody here wishing to speak in opposition of the zoning amendment? Any questions from council? Seeing none. And this public meeting is now concluded. I do have a recommendation here, item 6.2, that the planning report regarding ZBA 2021-10 located at part lot 20, concession 10, RP 60 R1506, part 2, 7158 Wellington Road 17. The Whiffle Tree Farm and Nursery be received for information, and further that the draft amending bylaw as circulated in the agenda be presented to council for first, second, and third reading. I need a mover, please. Councillor Craven, Councillor Martin seconded. Anybody opposed? And that is carried. Thank you. Well, next going on to item number 6.3. This is ZBA 2011-01. Reinders Mapleton Contracting and Wellington Road 8. And I believe we're just going to go right over to Planner Redmond for this.
Correct. So thank you, Mayor. So this application is an old one. As you can see by the date, it's from 2011. This was originally before council in 2011 to recognize the existing use on the property of a contractor's yard, as well as some landscaping activity. And at the time, I believe the background report should be attached to your agendas, but briefly what happened was there was some question about some of the other uses that were being conducted on the site, and we needed more clarification. They also they were doing some composting that may have required MOE approval. So the application in 2011 was deferred to provide an opportunity for the owner to go and talk to MOE and get the proper approvals. Anyways, time passed. There was correspondence back and forth between the owner and MOE, and then ministries changed. It was just one of those situations that just took a long time. And now he's back. He wants to proceed with what he had asked for back in 2011, minus the composting component that was a problem. So we're just bringing it forward to finalize that application. So that's all that's on the agenda tonight. The public meeting was held in 2011. There were no concerns raised at that time by any members of the public. And so we're just bringing back the draft zoning bylaw to move forward with his original request.
All right, thank you,
And
Linda.
we have no concerns.
All right, perfect. Thank you, Linda. The recommendation is that the planning report regarding ZBA 2011-01 located at concession 11, part lot 4, 8505 Wellington Road 8, Reinders J and J be received for information, and further that the draft amending bylaws circulated in the agenda be presented to council for first, second, and third reading. Mover, please. Seconder. Mover by Councillor Otten, second by Councillor Douglas. All right, discussion from council. Questions, comments? Councillor Ottens.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Chair. Not really a question. I'm glad this is being taken care of. And it's too bad that some of these have to sit around for 10 years before they can be, I guess, resolved. So I'm happy to see some of these old things getting resolved and taken care of. That's all.
Thank you, Councilor Ottens. Other council members? Anybody opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Now we're going to move on to item number 6.4. And this is consent application summary. And this is a long recommendation here. And I'll read that after Planner Redmond gives her spiel.
Thank you, Mayor. So, sorry, can you tell, I don't have the agenda open in front of me. Can you tell me which consent number we're dealing with?
It's consent land file number B7 5721,
Okay,
part lots 8 and 9, concession 15 Peel, the Becker property.
the Becker property. So this consent is a straight farm split. The Primag, it's in a Primag area, it meets the policies. It's a typical farm split. It meets all the policies and all the zoning requirements. So there's really no concerns with it at all.
Thank you. So the recommendation, council, is that Township of Mapleton support consent application B 57-21 as presented for lands described as part lots 8 and 9, concession 15, with the following conditions: that the owners satisfy all the requirements of the local municipality, financial and otherwise, for the proper and orderly development of the subject lands, including but not limited to the outstanding taxes, that payment be made of a fee of $266 or whatever fee is applicable at the time of clearance under the fees and charges bylaw for a letter of clearance, that a parkland dedication fee be paid, that a second driveway access to the severed lands can be provided to the satisfaction of the Township of Mapleton, that zoning compliance for the retained and severed lands be addressed to the satisfaction of the Township of Mapleton, that a copy of the deposited reference plan be submitted to the township, and further that council authorizes the municipal clerk to file with the Secretary Treasurer of the Planning and Land Division Committee at the County of Wellington a letter of clearance of these conditions on completion of the same. A mover, please. Councillor Martin, Councillor Douglas, thank you. Comments, questions from council? Anybody opposed? That's carried then. Thank you. And item 6.5. This is consent application summary land division file B61/21. Part lots 18 and 19, concession 12. That's the same thing. We got to read it all over again. Mr. Clerk, do I got to read this a second time? You're on mute.
I think, Your Honor, we have all have it in front of us, so that's fine. There's actually two consent files, B61 and B62.
All right, moving to seconder for the second part then. Councillor Craven, Councillor Ottens, thank you. Anybody opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Item number 7, we have a delegation here from the Guelph Wellington Women in Crisis. I believe it's Jensen Williams is here. Jensen, welcome.
Thank you, Council, for having me. So I'm here this evening to share some information with you folks about a little bit about our agency, Guelph Wellington Women in Crisis, as well as an upcoming event that we have in the fall called Take Back the Night, and some opportunities for you folks to support that. So my name is Jensen. I use she and they pronouns, and I work as the public educator over at Guelph Wellington Women in Crisis. For those who don't know much about us, we've been in the Guelph Wellington region supporting survivors of sexual violence, domestic violence, and human trafficking since 1977. So we've been in the community in the Guelph Wellington region for over 40 years. And as much as I love my job, it does make me sad to see that our services, continue to grow and continue to see the need for them in the community. A little bit about why the work that we do is important. Sometimes we talk about these issues, gender-based violence, as if they are abstract, but in reality, they are happening in our communities. 1 in 3 women will experience sexual or domestic violence in their lifetime. On any given night across the country, there's over 6,000 women who are sleeping in shelters because it's not a safe space at home. And there's certain groups of individuals who are more likely to experience violence, such as Indigenous women, young women, women with disabilities, and so forth. And when it comes to human trafficking, we know that the majority of human trafficking happens here in Ontario. So the work that we're doing is to both support survivors directly as well as to prevent violence from happening. So to provide that immediate support for survivors directly in the community. And we do so through our free programs and services that we offer. So in terms of where we're located, we have an administrative office in Guelph, but we also serve all of Wellington County through our Rural Women Support Program, which has offices in Erin, Fergus, Mount Forest, and Palmerston, although it does serve all of the county. In terms of what types of services we offer trauma counseling through our sexual assault center. We provide assistance for those where home is not a safe space in seeking emergency shelter through Marianne's Place, which is located in the Guelph area. We also have our Transitional and Housing Support Program, which helps individuals access more long-term and independent housing. We have a Family Court Support Program as well, our Anti-Human Trafficking Program, public education, and a 24-hour crisis line. So really recognizing that there is no, one-size-fits-all approach to survivors of violence. And when those call us or come to our doors, it's about figuring out what they need and how we can best support them in their journey to healing. So in the last year, this is from 2019 to 2020, we've served over 1,000 women and 50 of their children in the area. We've answered over 3,000 crisis calls, and we've really focused this last year throughout the pandemic in providing practical assistance for those who are experiencing food insecurity, job loss, homelessness, and have been able to provide over $20,000 worth of gift cards to clients in our community. But what I really want to focus on this evening is an event that we have in September. It's called Take Back the Night. And something that we do throughout the year at Guelph Wellington Women in Crisis is to consistently create opportunities to have conversations and to raise awareness about areas of gender-based violence. So pretty much throughout every month, throughout the year, we're hosting different events and talking about different issues. And like I said, there's these many that we host, but Take Back the Night in September is an annual event that we do. And for those who haven't heard of it before, it's part of a global movement that was started in the 1970s to raise awareness about sexual violence and ultimately work towards preventing it. And it's a really great opportunity for community members to join us in this work and recognizing that everyone can be part of the solution into ending gender-based violence. And what that requires is, ongoing conversations and opportunities for engagement. So it's an event that both celebrates the resilience of survivors. We oftentimes will have some of our former clients speak, survivors in the community, to provide an opportunity to have that space. And typically it's held in person and really gives that empowering sense of community. And we do a march after, and it's traditionally held in Guelph, but this year we're moving to have a virtual live stream event. So no participants, unfortunately, this year, but this will be the first time that we've held it in almost 2 years due to the pandemic. So that virtual event is happening on September 16th from 6:30 to 7:30 p.m. And one of the ways that we want to give folks that opportunity where they can still engage and still have that element that they can march in some sense and be with one another and have that community feel is that we're wanting to do an education and awareness campaign called Take Back the Trail. And this we really want to focus within Wellington County because, like I said, the actual event has been held in Guelph, and we really want to expand our outreach to the county and also reach those who might not be connected to our services, might not know about it. So this signage campaign through Parks and Trails in Wellington County is to raise awareness about sexual violence, our virtual event Take Back the Night, as well as the supports that are available through Guelph Wellington Women in Crisis. And then the next slides here, I'll show you after what kind of that would look like. And so, like I said, we've been working with, different townships in different areas across the county. For Mapleton, we would propose to have the signage campaign in 2 trails, which would be the Drayton Walking Trail and Wallace Cummings Park. The sign installation and takedown would be our responsibility. And we would like to have 5 signs up. They're 18-inch by 24-inch lawn signs, so they quite easily stake in the ground and don't cause any damage for September 7th to 17th. So just kind of in the promotion of that virtual Take Back the Night. And this is sort of just to give an idea of what that could look like. So, folks are walking by, kind of, raising questions, curiosity, oh, what's that? We'll go have a look. And that's a great opportunity for folks to, for survivors to feel seen and heard, that there are organizations in their community that can support them, but also for others to have those conversations and to raise awareness about Take Back the Night. So these are some more kind of close-ups of what those signs would look like. So the first sign would be just sort of raising awareness about the prevalence of sexual violence and how it impacts different groups. It has information about that this campaign is being done by Guelph Wellington Women in Crisis. And we have those scannable QR codes so folks can scan, and that will take them to the event page where they can learn more about how to join our live stream event on the 16th. The next one would be ways that individuals can support survivors of violence. So some different tips there, folks feeling as if they could be part of the solution. And then the next two are just raising awareness about what Take Back the Night is, how folks can participate, providing an opportunity for people to take pictures of the signs and to share them to help us spread the word. And lastly, advertising our 24-hour crisis line, and that support is available for those who need it in the community. So that's kind of the spiel about the Take Back the Trail campaign. We would really appreciate the support of facilitating this in 2 parks, and whatever you folks need on our end to make that possible, to make it sure that it's accessible to folks. And that's my contact information there, as well if the contact information for our rural women's programs offices if anyone wants to reach out locally. So I will stop sharing my screen and see if there's any questions from council.
Thank you, Jensen, for that presentation. Members of council, any questions or comments? Councillor Ottens.
Thank you, through you, your worship. Somewhere in your presentation, I saw the phrase 1 in 3 move with me. Can you tell me what that means?
Yeah, absolutely. So my apologies, I did have to make an adjustment to my presentation just because we've changed the name of the trail campaign. We were going to do 1 in 3, which is the statistic around how many women experience sexual violence in their lifetime, move with me to Take Back the Trail, just since we found that it fit better with our advertising of Take Back the Night. And then just the 1 in 3 kind of also only spoke to women. We want to make sure that more folks feel included in this work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Further questions, comments? Councillor Martin.
Just a comment, really. I just wanted to say thank you to Jensen for taking the time to come out and promote this and raise awareness for this type of stuff. We know that these types of services and programmings and awareness and everything like that is very important. And, for you to come out and take the time to, promote it here in Mapleton is fantastic. So thanks for taking the time.
Thank you, Councillor Martin.
Anyone else? And again, thank you, Jensen. That was a good presentation. I know my previous work as a police officer, much use needing shelters for women and taking them there. So I do appreciate what you're doing, what the work is of the organization as well. It's very important work done.
Thank you very
I do
much.
a recommendation. Yeah. Recommendation here that the Township of Mapleton Council receive for information the presentation entitled "Who Are We and What Do We Do" by Guelph Wellington Women in Crisis, Jensen Williams. Now, there's no component here, Council, if you want to add to it about supporting the signage on the trails. That's not included here, Councilor Douglas.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a motion to amend it to add the support from the township.
And Mr. Clerk, if I just put, and the township supports the trail. Sorry, Jensen, what's the name of that program again?
Take Back the Trail.
Take Back the Trail. That work, Mr. Clerk?
That's fine. Mr. Mayor, that'll be working fine. I'll pick that up on the video tomorrow. I'll make sure the wording is perfect.
Thank you. So I need a mover and a seconder then with the amended recommendation, and moved by Councillor Craven, seconded by Councillor Ottens. Thank you. And that is carried. Thank you very much, Jensen, for the information, and we're supportive of that. Take back the trail. I think it's a good idea.
Your
Right.
worship,
Yes.
if I may,
Baron?
if we can just go back, I believe we missed one application for consent. There was two separate applications, and I believe we've missed one of them.
Which one do you think we moved?
Well, there was B6121 and B6221.
That was agenda item 6.5, just Tim Martin for those lots on
Right.
north of Drayton.
So 6.4, and then we did do 6.5 right after that. That's the one that I didn't want to read all over again for the same application. The same property.
If I may, I think what the CEO is alluding to, there was actually two consent applications.
Oh, I see. Okay, I understand what you're saying. So 6.5, I did have a mover and a seconder on that one. That was Councillor Craven and Councillor Ottens. But we can go over that again. Consent application summary, land division file 6121 and 6221, part lots 18 and 19, concession 12. Is that the one you're referring to, Mr. Barron?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And that recommendation that was moved by Councillor Craven and Councillor Ottens, the Township of Mapleton Council support consent application 6121 and 6221 as presented for lands described as part lots 18 and 19, concession 12, Marlborough, with the following conditions. The conditions are listed there, and further that council authorize the clerk to file with the Secretary Treasurer of the Planning and Land Division Committee at the County of Wellington a letter of clearance of these conditions on the same. So any comments or questions from council then? Councillor Craven?
Yeah, I just have one question. Are we going to be able to meet the MDS regulations there, or is it already compromised by those other lots joining it?
Planner Redmond?
Thank you, Mayor, through you. It is probably compromised. Are you talking about the barns themselves that are close by, or are you talking about the proposed lot?
No, the barn's close by.
Potentially, they could be already compromised or already not compromised, but restricted.
Okay.
But we don't know that because we haven't even done a calculation. So that has to be done.
So these lots aren't going to affect that any further though, eh?
I can't see that they will. It's only one. There's two lots now. What they're doing is they're taking a strip from each lot and creating a third lot in the middle.
Yep.
So those two lots are already there and they're vacant. And so this is a middle one in the middle. So it's not, I wouldn't say that it's going to further compromise those barns, but certainly they don't need it. And the owner of the livestock facilities should have a right to participate in this process because there will be 3 houses across from him instead of 2 now.
Okay.
All right. Other comments and questions from council? Councilor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that was actually kind of one of my, we seem to talk about this with, rural severances and lot creations. The chicken barn across the road would have another residence probably closer on the corner of concession 12 and that county road. But I know Mr. Boosman doesn't feel that an MDS is required, but I just wanted to confirm that that will in fact happen, correct? So that those other landowners will at least have a, because there's the livestock barn to the south and the chicken barn right across the road. So that calculation will in fact happen. Is that correct? Or do we need to include that in this recommendation as a requirement?
Through you, Mayor, my MDS is a requirement that is fulfilled through the county. It's their jurisdiction to make sure that it's met. I would recommend that the township include that as a condition, simply because at the end of the day, it's the township that will receive the complaints or the concerns that could come out of this additional conflict being located there. Also, if they do have to get any kind of zoning relief to allow the lot, so what will happen is if they can't meet MDS, they can apply for a variance or a zone amendment to allow the lot within the MDS setback. And what that does is that provides an opportunity for the owners of the livestock facilities that are impacted to have an opportunity to address council on the matter and whether or not council wants to support that. The other thing that can happen is we can implement like reciprocal zoning or reciprocal site-specific zoning that would still provide an opportunity for the livestock facilities to expand or not be impacted. So there's ways to mitigate the potential impacts through going through the MDS process. So at the end of the day, it is the county that oversees the implementation of the MDS guidelines, and they will do that through this process, through the consent process. I understand that the agent for this application has a different opinion on whether MDS is applicable. They're relying on a section in the MDS guidelines that say settlement areas are exempt. So what that means is that new lots located within a settlement area do not require MDS compliance. This is not a settlement area for the purposes of that definition. But that's at the county, they'll go over that with him. And ultimately they have to decide whether it's applicable. My advice from a local level, I would make it a condition at our level as well.
All right, thank you, Planner Redmond. Further questions? So I'm hearing from Councillor Craven and Councillor Martin, you would like to have a condition on here that MDS be met as part of the conditions that are listed here. Is that correct?
Yes.
Or yeah, or at least the process be initiated, right? I think we've always, Mr. Mayor, I think we've always known that that was kind of the goal when the township even sold this property, right? That it would be residential lots. I don't think, but I certainly don't have a problem with it. I think I'm going to be really intrigued to see how those lots are designed with 36-foot frontages and that type of slope. I mean, Mr. Martin's going to be the guy to figure that out. I'm sure he's more than capable, but I'm going to be, really intrigued to watch to see what they do, right? Because it's an interesting parcel of land. But like always, like we've discussed before, it's just really the matter of making sure that the impact. I like the idea of that reciprocal thing that Redmond talked about to make sure that kind of moving forward, everybody kind of has protection there.
So Linda, do you have an idea what the wording should be then that the MDS be?
So Mr. Mayor, through my report, I'm not sure if it's in the overall requirements that I've just asked that MDS can be satisfied.
Okay, that's good wording.
Yeah. That provides an opportunity. There's different ways to satisfy it, right?
All right. Perfect.
It's generic. Yeah.
So council's okay with that alteration then? That addition? Now, originally I had this moved by Councillor Craven and Councillor Ottens. That's still firm? Okay, anybody opposed? Then that's carried. My apologies, council, for skipping over that. Now we go to 8.1. If I didn't miss my pages. 8.1. And this is the Parks and Rec Committee meeting of July 15th, 2021. And the recommendation here is that the minutes of the Mapleton Parks and Recreation Committee held on July 15, 2021 be received for information. A mover, please. Councillor Ottens, seconded by Councillor Douglas. Thank you. And who wants to speak to this? Councillor Ottens?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Davidson. I'm just drawing attention to some of the items on the Parks and Rec agenda that we had some discussion about the chair of the committee, because it's supposed to be a 2-year term and then a 2-year term, but given COVID and not having meetings, our chair agreed to stick with the committee as chair through the entire 4-year term, as long as that's okay with council. And then there's the 50-50 funding recommendations that we discussed at the meeting. So it would be the ice board dividers for the arena. And the small nets would be a separate application that they'd have to go for next year then, but this would be so that they could play hockey, across ways and having some better boards. So that was the application that we'd be approving here. And I think that's really all. I'm trying to read it on my phone here, so it's kind of small. I think that's all I'm drawing attention to, if I believe that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Clerk? The minutes of advisory committee meetings that are included in the agenda, this is being received for information and council needs to consider any recommendations therein. Do we need another motion for these inclusions that Councillor Ottens has spoken about? Do we need a second motion, or say a motion on the application for the arena boards? Do we need another do we need to do anything with the chairmanship of that committee through this?
Excuse me, sir. I would recommend that we have a separate motion for each of those.
All right. All right. So first, council will deal with the recommendation of the minutes of the Mapleton Parks and Rec Committee meeting held July 15, 2021 be received for information. We'll do that one first, and then we'll put 2 more motions on the floor for consideration. Does that sound fair? Any questions? So any questions or comments further on the entire committee meeting? Any other questions or comments from council at this point? Councilor Martin?
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just further to Marlene's comments, I think it's a pretty reasonable position that the committee came to considering the times that we were in COVID, to extend the term of the chair. I did notice some other comments about attendance at that committee, and again, I would where we are in this term of council, I would hesitate to start replacing members based on committee, especially with COVID, with the time of day that the committee meets. For a business owner, it's kind of tough to make a 4 p.m. meeting, right? And I did speak with him. He's certainly interested, always has been interested to make those meetings. And it was kind of some rescheduling that kind of happened, because it had to. But I think those committee members serve at the pleasure of council, right? And we've got a year and a bit left, and I think it's perfectly reasonable. I think it'd be even interesting for council to entertain removing that 8-year cap, right? Some of those folks that are involved in advisory committees are a wealth of knowledge, and let's be honest, we're not always flooded with applications for those committees, right? So I think any input's always welcome, regardless of how long they've been doing it. So that might be something for our next term of council to look at, but I think it was quite reasonable.
Thank you, Councilor Martin. Any other questions or comments at this time? All right, so we'll deal with the first one that we've spoken about, moved by Councilor Otten, second by Councilor Douglas, the receive for information. Anybody opposed? That's carried. So now we need a motion on the floor to allow for the chair to take a second term. Councilor Ottens,
I can make that motion.
someone to second that? Councilor Martin? So allow Chair of Parks and Rec Committee to sit for a second 2-year term. All right, so that's moved and seconded. Any questions, comments on that? Anybody opposed? And that's carried. And next we have We had the 50-50 funding request there. So that council approves the 50-50 funding for Drayton Minor Hockey in the amount of $4,500. Mover and a seconder for that. Councillor Craven, Councillor Ottens. Okay, so any questions, comments on that piece? Councillor Martin.
Sorry, quick one. And just for clarity, that the $4,500 was what was left in the 2021 50-50 budget, correct? I read that right?
Yes. Yeah, Mr. Martina?
Yes, to you, Mayor. To Councillor Martin, that is correct, yes.
Okay. Other questions? All right, and sorry, I just lost myself here. Did I get a mover and a seconder for that already? I did? Okay, anybody opposed? All right, so that's carried as well then. So those two items, thank you, council. All right, we'll move on to item 9.1, which is the kennel update. And this is that the Township of Mapleton Council received for information Building Department Report BD 2021-10 dated August 10, 2021 regarding the kennel licensing. Mover, please, and seconder. Councillor Douglas, Councillor Ottens, thank you. Ms. Patty Wright.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. This is just a report to update council on the number of licensed kennels we have as requested 2 meetings or so ago. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Questions from council then. Councillor Ottens. I believe you asked the question originally.
I did. Thank you. For you, Mayor Davidson. Yeah, so these kennels are all inspected every year at least once. And have there been any infractions, major infractions? And if so, how have they been dealt with?
We've had no infractions of any sort that we've had to deal with. They all are pretty quality kennels. They meet all the required guidelines.
Thank you. Further questions, Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Patty. I was surprised actually there wasn't more kennels. Considering the geographical size of Mapleton, it seems like this type of number is quite feasible for how big we are. What type of, I'm sure we've talked about this before, what type of number would be practical? I know there's that aspect of, we just like to know about them because there's a good chance they're going to be created anyway, regardless of whether they're licensed. But what type of number do you envision as being, practical for the size of township that we are?
CBO, right?
Through you, Mayor. Really, if you're talking about like on a per capita basis, I really don't know what would be a feasible number. I think as long as we keep inspecting and licensing, at least we have some control over the conditions. I don't know what other townships have for numbers, but like we keep up with this. The animal control officer does the inspections. There's assistance from our bylaw enforcement as well when needed, just to for training purposes and as a second hand. So I'm really sorry, Mike, I can't really put a handle on that question.
All right. Thank you. Follow-up question, Mr. Martin?
No, it's an industry that a comment, I guess, an industry, Mr. Mayor, that's quite in demand these days. I know, we've got people, friends of ours that are on a waiting list that's 2 years long, right, for puppies of specific breeds. And, no one wants a puppy mill. So I think, with the oversight that Patty's department, provides, I think it can be a good thing, right? Because there's certainly a market.
I was surprised as well, council, that when I looked at this and there's only 15 kennels, but I was really surprised that we only have one boarding place for animals. We have all these kennels and we know that there's a lot of dogs in the community and only one boarding place. And that surprised me. I thought there'd be more than that. Further questions or comments? All right, then have the kennel update moved by Council Douglas and Council Ottens. Anybody opposed? Thank you. Next, we have the report on the building, the recommendation here at 9.1.2 that Township of Mapleton Council received for information. Building Department Report BD 2021-11 dated August 10, 2021 regarding the July month end and year to date, moved by Councillor Craven. Thank you. Second by Councillor Martin. Thank you. Any questions or comments on this, council? I'd go right to Patty Wright, but I know Patty would just say my report speaks for itself. We've got a lot of good numbers again there, Patty. It's quite busy. All right. No other questions? Anybody opposed? And that's carried. And next 9.2, we have the CAO's clerk's report. The alternative methods of voting for the 2022 municipal election. Recommendation here that Township of Mapleton Council receive for information the clerk's report CL 2021-10 regarding alternative methods of voting for the 2022 municipal election. We'll get Mr. Wheeler to give us that report. Mr. Wheeler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing really to add to the report other than the obvious observation that our residents will likely have the privilege of 3 elections in the next 14 months. The CAO and myself have booked some staff training for the upcoming municipal election through AMCTO. And I just want to assure council that the clerk's office is aware of all of the pending deadlines for the province, including nomination date, lame duck period. We're on top of things anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Then we'll open it up to discussion. Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Ottens. Thank you. Questions, comments from this report? Councillor Craven.
If we went with the mail-in voting like we have in the past, and it seems to have been very successful, would we also go with a day of election where people could go and vote in person?
Mr. Wheeler.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Craven, we will. We have people showing up on election day, and they have trouble with their papers. They have challenges that they want us to help them with, and we provide them a private space to do their business and leave us with their votes.
Yeah, with the sorry state of the voting list, I think we need to have some place where people get clarity as to whether they can vote or not.
Certainly through Mr. Mayor, that's an absolute fact, and this will be the last municipal election where it's an embarrassing state.
Yeah, we look forward to the voting list in the future, Mr. Wheeler, because this the one currently that we used last election and the one we're going to have to use again was certainly riveted with a lot of flaws. Councillor Martin.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, obviously, like the report states, you know, we have some contractual obligations as far as certain methods of voting, but I do hope that council does consider, you know, internet or phone ability to vote by those means as well. We've all experienced in the last, you know, year and a bit, how we've had to pivot a meeting like this, right? Didn't happen 2 years ago. You know, I think if, you know, our turnout is never going to be extraordinary high here just by the nature of our demographics, and that's all good, that's fine. But I think if we are reaching out to the younger demographic, you know, voting by internet, you know, is something that we really need to consider. I'm not certain that the mail-in ballots have been an overwhelming success anyway. So I really, you know, I don't know, that would be the caveat, I suppose, Mr. Clerk, you know, what the cost would be on a program like that and the security that would go with it. But, you know, I would be really interested in exploring no pun intended, but we've got XploreNet towers going up, we've got fiber optics, the rural internet, is a thing that's being pushed across the country. And, for municipalities like us, I think we need to start tapping into that too, and at least provide the opportunity for people, right? If they choose not to vote, that's their right. But to try and drag somebody in their, 30s, out for an evening to vote, whether there's a lineup or not, it's not a thing, right? Not very often. So I think if we can provide different options that, might increase the turnout even marginally, I would consider that a success.
If I remember correctly, Councilor Martin, and I do understand where you're going, there's a number of, from the report, a lot of the municipalities in Wellington County are all doing the mail-in now. I know some just changed to mail-in from what they did before. But if I remember a conversation I had with Mayor Linton, I believe their voting turnout actually went down when they went to the internet. But that's something we have to explore. But I think that's what he had told me, that they actually went down. So for whatever reason, I don't know. Something else you have to consider too. It doesn't automatically mean it's going to be an increase, but we'd have to certainly research that out. Councillor Ottens?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Davidson. I would agree with Councillor Martin. I think we need to move with the times here. It's important that you stop thinking about how things should be because of how you wish it was, and see how it should be because of how it's going to be. You can't just always do things the same way because that's how you've always done it. And I know security is an issue with online activities, although we have closed meetings online, and that's okay. And as far as mail-in ballots, I'm not sure how secure that is. The mail-in that goes in my mailbox, and anybody could open my mailbox and take my ballot out of my rural mailbox and fill them all in. And how secure is that really? Any rural mailbox is up for grabs to anybody. So as far as security goes, I don't think online and mail-in is necessarily different. So I agree, it's something to definitely look at for the future, and to keep the options open. And maybe the better question is, why aren't people voting? Not how can we get them to vote? Ask why they aren't voting, and then go from there.
Thank you, Councillor Ottens. Further comments or questions? I think you both have it right. In the future, that's probably where we're going to go. Some kind of different type of voting. It's a little difficult right now when you have some people like Marlene. You have to come into the office you can't do your Zoom at home because of internet issues. And I think in the future, when we get more people out in the rural areas that have better internet service, maybe that will work for them. And I know that it's going to take a little while. My 83-year-old mother would have very much difficulty without support to do it online. But that's just she's never really been into that. So, Councillor Martin.
Yeah, just as a point of clarity, I wasn't suggesting for a second that we go exclusively online. Just as an option, keep the mail in. If you want to lick that stamp and get her done, like, perfect, right? That's a civic duty that some people take a lot of pride in, right? And it's a thing. But I just, as an option, right? If we provide the options, whether people choose to activate it or not.
So you're looking at a hybrid model, something that does both.
Yeah, and again, depending on the cost, right? Like, I'm not sure what that cost would be. But certainly you want to vote in person, we can do that. Want to send your ballot in by mail, perfect. Call it in, internet, like, maybe we don't have to do all of them, but I would suggest we should try.
All right. Any other comments or questions? All right, so we do have the recommendation here that I read that was moved by Councillor Martin, second by Councillor Ottens. Anybody opposed? Sorry, Councillor Martin. Were you opposing?
No, I thought there was going to be a chance for, making an amendment or including something further.
Do you want to make an amendment?
Yes, please. I would like to continue to explore alternative, internet and phone based methods of voting.
For the 2022 election?
Yes, please.
Do we have someone to, so that was moved by Councillor Martin and second by Councillor Ottens. Councillor Martin would like to make a amendment to that an alternative or a additional method of voting. Would that be better, Mr. Martin? An additional method of voting be explored?
Yeah, however, whatever, wording would encompass, I'm not sure if that means another staff report on kind of what the cost would be for procuring that type of software, or how we would do that, or what that would look like. I believe the clerk stated we've got till May to finalize that. But
Okay. So Councillor Martin has put in a amendment to the original. Councillor Ottens, would you second that still? Councillor Ottens has seconded that. Okay, further comments and questions then? Councillor Craven.
Would you reread the resolution before we vote on it? And
Sure can.
Mike did say something about telephone. I will be so opposed to telephone voting, it isn't even funny, because we had such a disaster with it the last time we tried that. And I would not be interested in even thinking about that.
Okay, Councillor Craven, right now with the amendment from Councillor Martin, it's the Township of Mapleton Council received for information the clerk's report CL 2021-10 regarding alternate methods of voting for the 2022 municipal election, and further that additional methods of voting be explored for 2022 election. So in addition to the mail-in ballots.
Yep.
So that's what the amendment reads. That's, Mr. Clerk, is that clear?
That's clear. Thank you.
Okay. So further comments and questions then from council on the amendment? Anybody opposed to this then? As amended? All right, that's carried. So Mr. Clerk, as the Councillor Martin has suggested, a further report to see what the cost and what it would be to have a hybrid method.
That's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll move on to 9.3. And this is 9.3.1 Digital Main Street recommendation that Economic Development Report ED 2021-06 dated August 10th, 2021 regarding Digital Main Street 3.0 be received for information. Moved by Councillor Douglas, second by Councillor Ottens. Thank you. Ali, please.
Through your worship. So this is just an information report. It's a good news that we got more funding for Digital Main Street. So last year, us, Township of Wellington North and the Minto Chamber of Commerce received funding for Digital Main Street 2.0. We hired Ashley Noble, our Digital Service Squad member, through that contract. It was supposed to be 6 months. We received extra funding for an extra 3 months of service with Ashley. We helped 5 businesses get the $2,500 grant. With the 2.0, it was only Main Street businesses. The OBIA announced more funding, and in this one, it is open to any commercially zoned business that can receive the funding. With this too, Ashley is helping to get the grant, but she also is helping to assist any business in our areas that need any digital needs. So if they would like to bounce some ideas off her on social media, websites, those kind of things, she is available to them. But last year we did see some good successes. We did only have 5 businesses receive the grant, but for example, Alamode launched their online ordering system, and Pretty Penny got their website through this funding. So it's just a good news story that we got the funding again in 3.0. And any questions?
Ali, it actually is a very good report, and very good information that we do have that money coming again for our businesses. And I'm certainly glad to see this, not just downtown businesses now. It stretches out a little bit further. I think that's going to be very helpful for a lot of our rural businesses. Questions from council then? Councilor Craven?
I too am glad to see that it's for business outside of the downtown area. I just wondered if it would be available for farms or not.
Ali?
Unfortunately, they do have to be commercially zoned.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Ashley is available though, if they'd like to speak to her and bounce some ideas around. She can definitely help with setting up Facebook pages, anything along those lines.
Can we put that on our website to let them know that they're eligible to talk to her?
Perfect. Thank you, Councilor Craven, for bringing that up. Further comments or questions? Then I'll call the question. Anybody opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. We're going to move on to our finance department. John's got 3 reports here. 9.4.1, the long-term financial planning strategy. The recommendation that Township of Mapleton Council receive finance report FIN 2021-16 regarding the township's long-term financial planning strategy as information, moved by Councilor Douglas, second by Councilor Martin. And we'll go to Mr. Morrison.
Through you, Your Worship. We adopted the long-term financial plan about the same time as we introduced the 3-year operating budgets. And this would be potentially the first time that we kind of went back and reviewed some of the measures. The long-term financial plan is a work in progress. It provides a lot of different ratios and numbers. Some of it contradicts one another. And I kind of wanted to weave up the story that at least I understand from what those statistics are telling us. So I would start out by, we made a commitment to keep the tax burden at no less than the CPI index. And our last 5-year average, and some of this information, by the way, is coming from the Ministry of Finance, is that we've averaged 2.4% versus 1.6. We've been doing better, more 3 years out of 5, but we're still a little bit higher than CPI. And the moderate reductions in the next 3 years is really assessment growth, and where we're taking advantage of assessment growth to keep the tax rates at a moderate level, relative, or the tax burden at a relative level. I also wanted to talk a little bit about the reserves as a percentage of the capital budget. So when I arrived in 2018, we had about 46% of that budget covered in reserves, and we're averaging right now 30%. And by the way, as we move forward in time, a ratio may look great this year and could be completely reversed and look bad the next year. It's our journey. It's how we're proceeding along here. And I would like you to keep that in mind. So we're now, just to show you that, I picked this off the ministry website, and they're telling us that our cash reserves relative to other southern lower tier rural municipalities, and I think there's about 148 of them are being compared to, is, we've went from a deficit in cash to now a surplus. And I know what 2020 is, so I just plotted it out there for you. So in terms of the pillars, these were measures of financial stability. And the plan was for financial stability is to keep our eye on the short term of the tax rates through your term of council, but looking ahead for 10 years to make certain that we were sufficiently able to fund the capital program, which is the biggest ticket item. I would suggest in terms of financial stability that we are we're demonstrating some success along that path. The next pillar was financial vulnerability. In the long-term plan, we talk about user fees. And I thought about trying to come up with some ratio, but it really would be boring. And I think this is more the reason why you would be looking at the user fees. So when you come and talk to you about the fee for this or that being too high, these are telling measures as well. So our unconditional OMAFA grant money as a percentage of municipal expenses has gone from 9.2% to 7.2%. So the funding from the unconditional grants from the province of Ontario has actually declined in real dollars and in inflationary dollars. So the percentage of support that we need has been significantly being reduced. In terms of grant money as well, the grant money that pays and helps fund the capital program is also being reduced in the last 3 years. So the senior levels of government aren't helping to restore the capital, the infrastructure that we need to replace. And that is a financial vulnerability. In terms of financial flexibility, how well can a municipality respond? Again, the information is coming directly from the FIR returns from the ministry. They're saying that we have a moderate risk. I'm not so worried about this at this point because we still have a lot of capacity here to moderate that downwards over time. The biggest issue here, though, is the asset consumption ratio. That is a measure of the closing amortization balance over the total cap TCA balances. Accounting speak for, have you almost depreciated all your assets? And what that ratio is saying to us is that even though we're moderate, we're approaching a high level of risk in just terms of the ratio number. It means is that our assets are coming to the end of their useful life and will need to be replaced. That is a warning sign that is on the horizon for us. We should pay attention to that. I believe when we start developing asset management plans, and you're already starting to see some of that from SEMA, you're going to start to sense the kind of the long-term cost of what that would mean. So I just, again, just to recap, I think our plan, as we've been looking in short and long term, has been effective in starting to collect the money needed to replace the assets. Our ratios are indicating that some of our assets are in fact coming to the end of their useful life. We're getting pressure from senior levels of government that they are not keeping the funding levels as the historical levels that they've had in the past. And that as we proceed in the next few years with our capital program, some of the ratios might deteriorate in terms of how much funds we have in our reserves to maintain the ongoing pressure of our asset replacement. That would be an inevitable part of that discussion. So, and not to belabor this very much longer, I hope that you understand the story that I've presented so far. So if there's any questions, I'd be able to answer them if I can.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. A very good report. I was very interested in seeing those numbers, and certainly when you look at the numbers of under the financial vulnerability and how we're not getting the monies we once did, and how that's putting pressure on us now and in the future. Looking at the drop, from 9.2 to 7.2, and the other one there, with our capital budget at 51 billion, 3.9%. That's quite alarming for us. And certainly it shows what the planning that we need to do. And I'm certainly grateful, sir, for the plan you've helped us get through in the last few years to get us to a point where we're in a much better position to absorb some of this in the future, even though we will still keep going back to the federal and provincial government saying, please share with us the funding that you once did, because that's very important. We can't do this by ourselves, and they have the deeper pockets than we do. Councillor Craven.
I agree. Good report, John. It makes a guy has trouble with financials understand it a little bit better. But is it a warning to us that we should speed up if we possibly can our infrastructure updating?
Through you, your worship, we have to pay attention to the fact that we have a funding issue, that we should be thinking ahead about what that might potentially mean to the next term of council, what it would mean to within the next 5 years in terms of what the tax rates would be in order to fund it. So do we put off collecting that money now because our term is coming, or your term of office is coming to a close and you want to keep the tax rates relative to the CPI? Or are we going to look ahead and properly fund it so that we're not creating a bigger problem 5 years from now? Something you have to decide.
Further questions from council then? Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To Director Morrison, you're more than welcome to belabor us with talking about these financial pillars anytime. I think it's probably going to be tough to ever eradicate politics out of financial sustainability for local municipalities. It drives me a little nuts that we put off doing things because it's an election year like that. It just doesn't make any sense. If it's a good idea, it's a good idea regardless of the timing. But I think we're always going to battle that a little bit. But your graphs and going back to 2015, it would be fascinating to see, and I know it's appropriate because it's the last this term and last term of council, but it'd be interesting to see what the projection would look like. We learn from our history, right? Are we nationally? You could argue from that, but at the moment, you learn from your history, and going back even another 5 years, there was 2 years there, 15 and 16 or 14, 15 and 16, where we kind of spent like drunken sailors there for a bit. And you can see that with our dip in reserves, and, rightly or wrongly, it was what it was. But, so just to project back of what it looked like, when we were doing year over year operating and capital budgets, right? Who had ever heard of a 10-year capital budget in, 2014 even, right? So, the fact that you're making council woke to the financial principles is fascinating, right? Because for me anyway, I can't speak for anybody else, but when it comes to growth, the whole idea of growth is to start to mitigate the tax burden on the individual, right? If your taxes are going to continue to go up, regardless of whether you have 2 neighbors or 10, I'm going to stick with 2, right? Like, that's like, why have the growth if it's not going to impact your tax burden eventually? So, it's fascinating stuff. And I love that you put time into trying to educate us and beating us over the head with this type of stuff. It's really fascinating, and it'll be interesting to see moving forward. What funding looks like. How COVID's going to affect that, because it's got to at some point. We got a lot of bills to pay across this country, and that might not bode well for lower tier municipalities.
Mr. Douglas?
Yes, thank you. Just kind of building on Councillor Martin's question, we talked about growth, paying for growth, but with growth comes more assets to manage down the road. say a water tower, there's remedial works, painting, things like that, more roads, more sewers. Do we have a sense that, down the road we're adding additional infrastructure, but will the eventual tax dollars be enough to cover the additional assets? Like, I'm just wondering if we look at that degree of down the road.
Mr. Morrison?
Through you, Your Worship, that's what we are in the process of doing right now. We introduced the asset management software called Citywide. We're sharing resources with Central Wellington to determine the life cycle events of these assets, determine what is the replacement values, when we should be repairing something or when we should not repair it. You're going to start seeing those plans probably next year. And that's when you will start seeing what is the cost of some of the plans that we're putting in place. And we would start to have a strategy to properly fund that as we move forward in time.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Further questions from council? All right. So I did read the recommendation here that was moved by Councilor Douglas and seconded by Councilor Martin. Anybody opposed? That's carried. Next, we have item 9.4.2, the 2021 Q2 operating budget variance report. Mr. Morrison?
This is the second in 4 quarterly reports that I conveyed to council as to the operating pressures that we are currently facing. There are about 3 issues I just quickly would point out to council, is that we're receiving about $183,000 of COVID funding this year for relief of the financial pressures that we've received because of the shutdown of our facilities. Whether that will be sufficient or insufficient will determine by the 4th quarter, when we will know whether our facilities are fully open and functional, or are we going to see a further setback. At this point in time, with that funding in place, I suspect that we have a modest surplus at this point of 120,000. Going through various expense categories, the only thing I've previously already mentioned to you is the insurance is creating a huge, significant budget pressure that we might want to address. And finally, the last point is something we've added to the quarterly reports for this time, is that we gave you a separate update on our capital expenditures as of June 30th. On that date, what I've known has been repaid or we've issued a purchase order for, and what projects that we still have work in progress from the prior years, what projects you've either added or had us removed by your resolutions, and it's a running total of what we're working with in terms of our expenditure envelope for this year. The funding part, as grants come in, we will also adjust it as well. I believe there was a small announcement being made about receiving grant money from FCM with respect to one of the master plans. And once I have the money in the bank, we'll post that as a source of funding for that project as well. So is there any questions? I'd be prepared to entertain that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. The recommendation I have here, council, is that Township of Mapleton Council receive finance report FIN 2021-15 regarding the Q2 2021 operating budget variance as information. Moved by Councillor Ottens and Councillor Douglas. Thank you. Questions for Mr. Morrison on this report? Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Not seeing any questions. Is council anybody opposed then to this recommendation? And that is carried. And lastly, Mr. Morrison, you have an Infrastructure Ontario debenture application.
Yes, through your worship, this is this process is set out by Ontario Infrastructure. They want a bylaw to be a very structured bylaw to be approved by the council, assigned by the mayor and clerk, that is confirming our intent to submit an application process. So we provide you a copy of that bylaw, a number of the reasons, other pieces of information that will have to be sent along with it. And at this point in time, we still don't know what is the interest rate that we would be paying should our application be accepted. So currently the spot rate was about 3%, just a little over 3% when we accepted the tender award for the water tower. I calculated the 3% impact would have on the ratepayers if we were to issue this debenture, and that impact was reported in the earlier report from the last council meeting. And I just kind of give you an indication. The reason that the timing for the application is to take advantage of the low interest rates that we have right now. In the last 6 months, that interest rates have gone up 46 basis points or 47 basis points, and that's added another $223,000 to the cost that the ratepayers would have to pay back. So I'm trying to secure long-term rates at almost what we would do internally if we were borrowing the money from the capital reserves.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. The recommendation here is that the Township of Mapleton Council receive as information the finance report FIN 2021-17 regarding OILC debenture application, and that authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the Infrastructure Ontario bylaw, thereby confirming council's intent to submit a financing application. I need a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Douglas, second by Councillor Ottens. All right, questions then? I don't see any questions. All right, then anybody opposed? And that is carried. Next, we have the approval of the bylaws. Recommendation here on page 7 that the bylaws number 2021-047, 2021-048, and 2021-049 be hereby read a first, second, and third time and finally passed, signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with a corporate seal. I need a mover, please, and a seconder. Councillor Ottens and Councillor Martin. Any questions or comments on these three? Then I'll call the question. Anybody opposed? And that's carried. Next, we have item number 11.1. This is something that came from the last council meeting, the Tay Valley Township letter of June 23rd, 2021. Recommendation here is that Township of Mapleton Council hereby supports Tay Valley Township Council's letter of June 23rd, 2021, addressed to the Honorable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, which read, provincial hospital funding of major capital equipment. The Council of the Corporation of Tay Valley Township is requesting that further consideration be given to having the province be financially responsible for the replacement costs associated with all major capital equipment in hospitals, as municipalities across the province are facing major shortfalls in meeting their financial obligations set out in their asset management plans and cannot afford to directly absorb the financial responsibility for the replacement costs of the hospital's major capital equipment without jeopardizing their financial sustainability. And further, that Premier Ford and Tay Valley Township Council be made aware of the Township of Mapleton's resolution of support. I believe Councillor Craven that you brought this up to support. Is that correct?
Yes, can I address this, please?
Yeah, you're going to move that then, Councillor
Yes,
Craven?
I will. Yes.
I need a seconder first then. Councillor Ottens, thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Craven.
Yeah, as most of us know, the province only funds the operational part of the hospital budget. The capital part is always funded by usually the foundations or the local people. And with the COVID situation, you can be pretty sure that the province is going to be hard pushed to even cover the operational parts of the hospital. And I just would like to see the province come up with some money for capital projects for the hospital, because hospital stuff is expensive because there are so few makers of a lot of the stuff. It just costs a lot of money for equipment.
Thank you, Councillor Craven. Anybody else wish to speak to this? Councillor Martin.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little bit confused. You know, where the funding comes from. Like, I know obviously major hospitals have foundations as well, but do foundations and private donations fund 100% of capital costs? Like, that would be, is that a thing, or does the federal government kick in? Like, I feel like that can't be true across the board. Maybe it is for community hospitals. But I guess I'm just a little bit confused by it, that's all.
Yeah, it's funded by the fundraising efforts of the hospitals, and private and corporate donations cover about 100% of the capital projects the hospitals have. And this year with COVID, some of the fundraising projects that some of the hospitals might have are certainly going to be reduced. For instance, our gala, if it was canceled, then that takes quite a chunk out of their fundraising money. So they're going to need some help from the government for their capital projects as well.
I know in the past, Councillor Martin, and probably we're still paying for it, the county provided many millions of dollars to local hospitals, including the Groves Hospital. So a lot of funding did come out of the municipal budget of the county. I think Groves Hospital for their capital build of the new hospital, Palmerston Hospital got, I believe, $5 million. And I believe the Louise Marshall Hospital also got $5 million through the county to pay for some of their equipment and capital expenditures. Where the rest of the money comes from, Councillor Martin, I don't know. Any further questions or comments on this? So the recommendation was moved by Councillor Craven and second by Councillor Ottens. Anybody opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Now we do have a number of items of council's information. And I'd just like on item 12.10, Mr. Martina, could you speak to item 12.10, please? The Federation of Canadian Municipalities, letter of July 22nd.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This letter is following a grant application that staff submitted to FCM for funding of a very important tool that we were using to inform our capital roads program, which is our road study. So there was a grant application opportunity for up to 80% funding for this important tool that we use. It's been a long time in coming. I think we submitted the application in December of 2020. So it took this long to get the funding approved, but it'll pay for 80% of the value of that tool for us to use in our capital forecast projections.
Thank you, Mr. Martina. I know that we've been waiting for this money, so thank you for staying on that file and back and forth with FCM to find out where they were. I know that they had some difficulties getting the financing out as well with changes in staff and changes in leadership. So I'm certainly glad that you stayed on that file and we got that money now. And if I remember correctly, Ms. Martina, that's the roads that we had x-rayed, I believe. Is that what they did with it?
Well, actually, it's a mobile unit that traveled all of our roads and measured deviations in elevations and discontinuities and things like that to give it a rating on the condition of the pavement. And it also allowed for photographs of the roadway, and it also had another component where we pick up some assets as well. So it'll help us to identify more assets to add to our asset management plan. Just part of the big picture of collecting data and informing our iCity program of what we have on hand and evaluation of all our assets in the long term, and then again the sustainability of those assets over time.
And this will help council with the long-term planning that we just had a discussion with John when it comes to finances, because we're going to have this great information provided by this service that was done on our roads and assets. So very good to have that financing come forward. Anything that council wants to bring up from what they read on these council information correspondence? Nothing further. All right. Then we'll move down to item number 13, notices of motion. If council recalls, this notice of motion was submitted by myself. It was put on last council meeting. We also had a discussion at last council meeting following another notice regarding traffic calming policy. So I'm going to amend this recommendation that I have here just minorly. We're going to take out the part that urban areas of the township to not exceed 30 kilometers an hour. So it's going to be a recommendation that be a result that Township Council of the Township of Mapleton cares for all children in our community and desires to keep them safe from moving vehicles around all schools and parks on township roads. Therefore, council sets speed limits around parks and schools in the rural areas of the township to not exceed 60 kilometers per hour. So if you go through any of our township, this is going to be moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Ottens. If we go through our township around the parochial schools out there, the speed limit right now is 80 kilometers an hour, with the children going to school on bicycles and walking, horse and buggy taking them as well. And this is just a motion at this time to recognize that could be a dangerous situation for those people, and to change it from an 80 to a 60. And I had this conversation with some Mennonite folks that live out in the area, and they were quite concerned. So I also had a conversation with a sergeant of the OPP who had gone into some of the schools and spoke to some of the leadership of the schools, and they were looking for a reduction in speed. So I put this forward to council to consider. So I'll open it up for comments and other questions. Councilor Craven?
I'm pretty much in favor of this, because anytime we can slow the traffic down, obviously make it safer for other motorists and for anybody that happens to be walking on the side of the road. Will any of these speed limits apply to county roads?
No, this would just be our township roads at this time, Councilor Craven, and a different recommendation would have to be made to the county when it comes to any schools on their county roads. Any other comments, Councilor Ottens?
Yes, to clarify then, what would be the distance that, like how far before a school and after a school would this limit apply? This is just obviously the Mennonite schools out on the country roads that we have in Mapleton. That's what this would affect?
That's correct.
And that, and how long of a distance before and after the school would this limit apply?
Mr. Martina, you can possibly answer that. It'd be something under the Ontario traffic guide that would guide that distance before and after school, would it not?
I would think, through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Ottens, I would think TAC, the Transportation Authority of Canada, would have some guidelines on that, and certainly we will research that and implement whatever is recommended by TAC.
Okay.
Thank you. Further questions, Councillor Martin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do actually appreciate that amendment. I wasn't expecting it. The whole 30-kilometer thing, I wasn't sure how that was going to plan out at all, but not very well. But just for clarity, so I certainly support the rural school zones down to a 60. But the park thing, most of our parks are urban. What type of parks do you have in mind that would be out in the rural setting?
Well, I don't have a park in mind right now, but I just wanted to include it in case a park happened to end up in a rural areas. At one time when we were discussing development out just outside of Drayton, I believe it was last year, and part of that plan, the park was going to be by the road. We changed that, but it was just to keep that, if we have that in place, then if any park does end up on the side of a road, maybe someone donates land and builds a park, that we'd have the ability to change that to a 60. We could take that out, but I just wanted to have the ability to change it to, or make sure that kids are safer on a park or a school out in the rural areas. I don't know of any park currently out there. That's why, but I left it in there for any future park that might be there if we don't have one now. Go ahead, Councilor Martin.
So is this something that we could, because I know, if I recall right, after the river run policy, or notice the motion got changed to be more generic, is this something we could include in that same policy? I know traffic calming, speed reduction is a part of it, but that's one question. And the follow-up would be, how are we going to deal with the enforcement side? We can change speed limits till we're blue in the face. If Mapleton does not enjoy high amounts of enforcement coverage, we're lucky to get one cruiser that, I happen to live in a 40 zone, in a school zone. And I can promise you the speed limit's not 40. Everything from heavy trucks to farm machinery to personal vehicles exceed 40, right? So we can change the speed limits all we want, but if we don't have the enforcement, it's a fun thing, right?
You're right, Councilor Martin, and not everybody will, but there will be a portion of the population that will reduce their speed. Maybe they won't get to the 60, but they might reduce it from the 90 they're doing and drop it down to a 70 when they get there. The hope is that people in itself will do the right thing. Now, mind you, after we do, if we do approve this, then of course the OPP would be getting notification that once we put the signs up that we're changing the sign, we're changing the speed limits on these roads around parochial schools. And once I had this conversation with a sergeant of the OPP, that a local sergeant, so it was part of their recommendation that we look at this. So hopefully, since they're the ones that kind of brought it up to me, as well as some Mennonites, that they will make sure that there is some kind of enforcement aspect to it as well. We can't force them to do it, but we do have that option.
So just another follow-up then, Mr. Mayor. So Center Peel is a public school.
Correct.
Does it enjoy a reduced speed limit over there on the 6th line, or is that part of a school board thing that comes in? It's just parochial schools would be looking to hit, or how do you know how that affects?
So it'd be any school on any of our township roads. So they'll be on our township roads. So it'd be, I don't even know what the speed limit is there. Mr. Bettina, do you know what the speed limit is at the Center Peel School? I don't remember.
I'm not certain, Mr. Mayor, but I would think it's 80.
Okay.
So it'd be reduced for that school as well. The other follow-up question you had, Councilor Martin, was in regards to the traffic calming policy. And I did have this conversation with Mr. Bettina and Mr. Barron. And that is why I changed this, because we're going to look at the urban areas in that traffic calming policy. And that's going to look at the entire urban areas to see what the actual speed should be for all of urban. And so instead of looking at just parks and schools in the urban areas being 30, we'll look at speeds throughout the entire urban areas in our township to see what the most appropriate speed is for vehicles to be adhering to. Again, hoping that if we do make a change there, that enforcement will be done by the OPP. And I know what you're saying about the OPP. I have seen more OPP in our area as of recent, and I know they did a traffic blitz in our area once 1 month already this year, and they are now taking a township at a time and going through a township doing blitzes. So we will see them again. In fact, I went by an OPP that had pulled someone over on the 8th line the other day. And Marianne, my wife, of course, noted that, oh my goodness, they're pulling someone over. maybe I better slow down. So she wasn't driving, I was, but she's looking at it as being that, they're back in our area again. So hopefully other people will see it and start reducing their speeds. Other questions, comments? So I'll just read that again. It be resolved that the Council of Township of Mapleton cares for all children in our community and desires to keep them safe from moving vehicles around all schools and parks on township roads. Therefore, council sets speed limits around parks and schools in the rural areas of the township to not exceed 60 kilometers an hour. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Ottens. So if there's no other questions, I'll call the question. Anybody opposed? Okay, that's carried then. Thank you. So we go to item number 15, other business. Anybody have anything else to bring up?
Yeah, if I could, through your worship, staff and
Craven, go
council,
ahead.
staff and council don't get very many compliments, but I had a call from Helen Moffat a couple of months ago. She heard her Red Hatters group wanted to use the picnic shelter in Moorfield Park, and she wondered if the washrooms would be clean and so on. So I checked with Luke, and yeah, he would clean them. And Helen phoned me that night and said that they were very impressed with how clean the picnic shelter and the washrooms were there. So compliments to Luke on that. Also to Amy. The kids at the day camp were at the picnic shelter when the ladies got there. Shortly after the kids left, we went to another part of the park, but the ladies saw what they call a snake thing in our playground area, didn't know how it worked. So they went and got the kids and brought them back, and they showed the ladies how it worked. And the ladies were very impressed with how polite and easy to get along with and well behaved the kids were. So compliments to Amy and her group for that.
Perfect. Thank you, Councillor Craven, for bringing those two items up, and congratulations to our staff. We do have some great staff here, and we've made some strategic changes in staff and different positions, and those that have taken up these new positions have done a wonderful job in what they've been doing thus far, and we look for great things in the future as they get a better handle on what their job is. And I know that Mr. Barron, he's always praising the staff, and it's good to hear it coming from others to council members as well. Any other business from council? Councillor Douglas?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I was just thinking the other day about the rink board advertising in our arena. And, I think we only have 2 or 3 rink board ads. I'm just wondering if there's an opportunity maybe to do a fundraising with minor sports that we share the proceeds of any sales. If they put a campaign out to help try to sell some ad space, then it'd be a share of the revenue. If maybe there'd be some support to have council or have staff look at something like that.
Mr. Barron?
Absolutely, we'd be happy to look into it. Great idea. And I think if we can benefit and minor sports can benefit, I mean, win-win all around. So absolutely, we'll look into it.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. I have a couple items, both of them pertain to Councillor Craven. Councillor Craven and his wife Elizabeth celebrated the 50th anniversary on last Saturday. And Councillor Craven, once again, congratulations on your 50 years, and congratulations to Elizabeth as well. I know she's in the background listening somewhere, but to both of you, it's 50 years is a great accomplishment.
Thank you very much. And I was very pleased last night. About 8 o'clock, we had our doorbell rang, and we had Senator Black at the door presenting with a certificate. And that was quite pleasing to talk to Rob. I've met him 2 or 3 times, and quite nice of him to do that.
That is quite a surprise. I'm sure you got there, Councillor Craven. Yeah. Yep. And also, Councillor Craven, this coming week, you're celebrating 75 years as your birthday. Apparently. So happy birthday to Councillor Craven for 75 years. That's on Wednesday, is it? Next week?
18th, whatever day that is.
18th, okay. 75 years. Well, that's amazing. That's an amazing feat as well. Yeah. I hope they're not going to put 75 candles on your cake, though, Dennis.
No, it's part of the reason I'm here and celebrating it is because of how well I've been looked after by my wife.
We'll give all kudos to Elizabeth then. Yes. Fantastic.
What does, I'm curious, what does the price of coffee drop down to when you're 75? I know you get the discount at 65, but does it keep going down until it's free?
I don't know, but I'll be looking forward to it because I do drink a lot of coffee. I'll let
I
you know.
think that was Councillor Martin saying he owes you one. That's what he's saying right there.
Okay.
All right, if there's no other business, then we'll move on to,
Actually-
go ahead, Councillor Ottens.
Yeah, I'll just throw another little promo in. Our sunflower thing is this
Sunflower, yes.
Saturday. I'm even wearing my little sunflower. It's about 85% filled. And we've talked about Palmerston Hospital funding, and that's where all the proceeds are going. So if all the spaces are filled, then it should be a good 16,000 for the hospital from that event. And yeah, we've got lots of volunteers. Our fire department's helping out with some things, and it's going to be a great day. So if you don't have anything planned for Saturday, we still have some space for you.
All right, perfect. And Mr. Barron, do we have an idea when the groundbreaking will be for the water tower yet?
Yeah, I was just talking to Tom Montgomery about half an hour prior to council, and it will be, we got to confirm with Eva on Thursday, but they're still looking at the second week of September.
All right.
Your worship, if I may.
Yes.
Amy is still here, and I know now that we're talking about great news, if we can ask her to see how registration for before and after school is going.
All right, that'd be great. Amy?
Sure, through you, Mayor, we're very excited to open registration this morning for the after school program. At 9 o'clock it opened, and we are currently just over halfway full for the program that's being offered at Drayton Heights Public School. So we have about 12 or 13 spaces left available, and after that we will be full for the year.
Wow. That's going quick. Just opened up today. That's amazing news.
Yeah, it was great to see.
I bet. That just shows you how much needed the service is in the community. And even though we opened it up, and I know I forwarded that off, the next time I saw something on Facebook was someone looking for after school support. So, you know, the need is out there. So perfect. Thank you, Amy. Anything further, Mr. Barron?
No, sir.
All right. So we'll go to item number 17, which is our confirmatory bylaw. And this is recommendation that the bylaw number 2021-050 being a bylaw to confirm all actions and proceedings of the council of the corporation of the Township of Mapleton be hereby read a first, second, and third time, signed by the mayor and clerk and sealed with a corporate seal, moved by Councillor Douglas, seconded by Councillor Ottens. Thank you. Any questions, comments before we close off? Anybody opposed? That's carried. Thank you, everyone, for your questions and comments today. It's a really good session again. I really enjoy this council we have here. Good discussion. And we are adjourned. And we'll take care, everyone. And just for Mr. Craven, the extra meeting we were going to have next week, that's been canceled. We're going to move that till September. So you can have your birthday week without any problem there, Mr. Craven.
Could the groundbreaking be the same time as the meeting then, just to simplify things?
Through you, we will do our absolute best to make that happen.
Before the meeting or something?
There you go. We'll see if we can get that to happen there. Good idea, Marlene. All right, everyone. Take care. Thank you. Have a good week.